Hey, what's up, guys? You're listening to the Zack Scriven podcast, and in this episode for Automation Month, we're talking to Justin Dean. Justin Dean is a longtime supporter of the IntelliG channel, of Zack Scriven Media channel, and he's a big automation influencer. He works for CSE Icon, but has a long, extensive background in industrial automation and controls. He's really a leader in the IIoT Industry 4.0 space. And, so I'm very excited to share this podcast with you guys. But first, we got to talk about our sponsor, 4.0 Solutions. Thank you, 4.0 Solutions, for making it possible and featuring today's best-in-class product, best-in-class information platform. So I wanted to take a quick show you guys that Flow here. Flow, you guys have heard of them before, but I'm going to show you guys that how easy it is for you to collect data from multiple different data sources. To calculate KPIs using flow measures. Now, the key is that these flow measures will not only go forward in time, but also backwards in time and backfill your data. It's really important distinctions there, and visualize into like beautiful, intuitive dashboards. They also can ship these reports out to Slack channel. So, it's not only an information platform, but it's also a real-time reporting and communication collaboration platform. That's why it's best in class. So if you guys have not checked out Flow yet, download it today using the link in the video description. That's flow-software.com. Thank you, Flow Software. Thank you, 4.0 Solutions. And thank you, listeners. Now, I hope you guys enjoy this show. Then what's happening, man?
Hey, good. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good. Fine to see you.
Oh, man. Forgive me. I'm eating. I just got off another podcast with Dustin.
Oh,
so, yeah, it went well. It's good to finally see you guys in camera and in person. The way I kind of had set it up was that, we didn't really talk beforehand. So the podcast itself is going to be that natural unfolding of, us in our conversation. And because I feel like that's kind of when the best conversations happen,
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So what's your summary of what's been going on in the industry and what you've been seeing and what the trends are?
I would say over the recent time, there seems to be a lot more collaboration between companies, and from a skill set perspective, when you look at individuals, I think that they're becoming more diverse. Whereas in probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you had really everybody in their own small vertical as far as what their sort of skill sets were and kind of where they wanted to stay. So
What are why so you're always in the comments, you're always big community advocate. What is it about like the content that Walker creates that you resonate with?
I mean, I think ultimately we have similar, I guess, mindsets. I think Switch for a long time. I think a lot of people, like when they looked at me, they're like, okay, you're like this odd person. You cross all these different verticals or whatever. But obviously, like as he's alluded to, you see more and more of the guys that think the same way, and so they obviously start to come to surface. Because I mean, ultimately, because I've been on LinkedIn probably, since either the early 2000s or like mid 2000s, I guess when it first came out. And at that time, you had people where, like, if you posted something, 90% of it was going to be a negative comment or something where someone's trying to boast their intelligence or whatever. So whereas like now, it's more of like this true open dialogue. So it's almost like you've got all these guys either set it in your living room or set it in your office or whatever and having a common conversation. And maybe not everybody agrees on the same things, but it's all in like a positive situation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we didn't have that before. I mean, we had forums and we had community conferences like the Ignition Community Conference, but LinkedIn's kind of been like the water cooler of all of the industrial, system integrators that we can just kind of go chat and stay connected in a way that we have not been able to before.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So it's definitely exciting to see you taking part of that and, and doing this podcast. So, thank you for doing your part.
Yeah, I think for a long time I was hesitant on even commenting just because of of sort of the environment before. I think, but now I think it's all sort of a positive, situation overall. And like, yeah. So like, I'm excited to do this podcast. I mean, I think it's like it's a great way to see other people sort of how they kind of came to where they're at now and so on. So I think it's a good thing.
What are some of the episodes that you've watched of the Zack Scriven podcast?
I've pretty much watched all the ones um, with your Walker. Sometimes I'll watch them a couple times to sort of be because I'm always interested in learning from other people as far as so whether not just about automation, but whether it's business or personal, whatever. I mean, so I've seen pretty much all the ones from the Intellic side primarily, I think. And so recently I've seen some of the ones where you've talked with some other um, somewhat influencers or what have you. But yeah, I mean, I actually enjoy like watching videos. So usually, towards the end of my night, which is usually pretty late, I usually will watch videos of all type of sorts that sort of, like that pokes my interest and stuff like that. So, I like, seeing those things and because of you have good content that I think people can either they can learn something from it, regardless whether their level of sort of experience in the industry or whatever, or even have them have now so new ideas on what they want to try to do themselves, too.
Yeah. So, um, what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something really good. So you saw this? You saw the one with Sean Terrell? That was a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, podcast. Got Justin Dean in the house. You have any questions for me? I'm running out of questions here.
Yeah. So I mean, so ultimately, I kind of understand, at a high level, sort of what drove you to sort of start this sort of movement, I guess that you sort of are now involved in or whatever. But sort of, so how did you really get started in the automation side of things?
Okay, yeah. So that's a good question. I got started through my parents. They had a system integration firm called Waterhammer Inc. And my mom actually started it in 1998. At that time, my dad was working for Wonderware uh, and primarily focused on the water vertical, water treatment, water distribution. So he had a lot of contacts in the industry that he would maybe sell a Wonderware factory suite package to a water district, but they had no technical expertise to be able to implement it themselves. So he would kind of refer those contacts to my mom, who would then go in, develop those solutions, and service those clients. Or maybe they already had a SCADA, but they just needed some maintenance or some screen changes. That's what my mom would do. Eventually, that grew to the point where they were doing full turnkey projects, panel builds, radio, servers, you name it. Primarily water, wastewater, but some water, wastewater treatment, water, wastewater facilities, some mining facilities, a little bit of manufacturing, but mostly water, wastewater. So I just it was a home-based business. I just grew up around it, right? They put me to work at first, like filing, then it was like, setting up the computers, learning about the stuff, and then I was like making screen changes, mean, we always, my sister and I, we always had like computers since we grew up. Like we were doing, Microsoft Paint projects and things like that on Windows 95. So we were always like technically literate. So it's just a matter of learning these packages like Wonderware to, for at first like draw out the screens or, and then learning the tagging behind it. Like I started learning this stuff pretty early. And so I just kind of naturally,
Oh, yeah.
it was like native to me. And then so, doing it as a living then came pretty easy. And I was doing that while I was in college. Eventually I just dropped out of college to do it full time, because there's not really like a class or college degree that you can go to that will give you these skills. You kind of just, you got to learn it yourself. I mean, the biggest skill of an integrator is being able to get that, being able to learn on the fly, being able to figure some problem out that you've never been faced with. So that's truly what an integrator is, unique skill. What about you, man? How'd you get involved in the industry?
For sure. How I get involved? Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I came out of high school. I was a track guy, and I went to college. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was always good at art, and then I was in school, and I had to take a computer-aided design class, and the guy taught it from electronics perspective, and so I didn't know anything about like that. So I mean, all I really knew is if you plug something in the wall, it turns something on, essentially. And so by the end of that particular course, I started picking up the electronics side. And so then he's like, I think you should switch to electrical engineering because you'll make a lot more money and so forth. So I switched to next semester, and I've sort of been involved in that since that point, in school. And so to be honest, I ultimately thought I was going to be a motor engineer. I mean, coming out of college, but I naturally, was geared towards pretty much anything that someone asked me to tackle. I've always been that sort of had that sort of mindset. So that's sort of how I got involved in. I would say from an engineer, I'd say from an engineering perspective. Well, for the most part. So it's been pretty interesting, since that point. So it's just kind of an odd story of how I sort of got into it. So I mean, it's almost by accident, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So tell me about, so tell me about like your actual day-to-day job, like today now, I guess.
So my day-to-day job is a lot of my projects are focused around SCADA. Like right now, I've been working on a 1,000 well ignition SCADA system for a client in the New Mexico, Colorado area. And that's kind of a weird thing because now they want to migrate it from ignition to a different platform after going through all that effort because they bought some other assets or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I get involved in everything from like I said, the more SCADA to more process control system side. From a day-to-day perspective, I would say for the most part.
So do you still own your own company and you also work at CSE Icon, or how does that work?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So about like the middle part of last year, probably like September timeframe, I got approached by CSE to go work on a project for a company in Dallas, which has an extremely large ignition SCADA system, and then I kind of turned that down. And the owner of CSE was like, "Okay, well, you got this diverse like skill set, so I want to see how to leverage it, how to use it inside our organization." And so we came to terms. And so I decided to sort of just work with them. And like I said, for the first project, it was primarily the goal was sort of to be, on the ignition side, kind of remote, behind the scenes sort of, thing. And so it sort of has evolved. I've sort of, jumped in, tried to bring them some business as well as where it fit, because I look at my business at this point as like like when I was looking at the situation, like I didn't want it to conflict in any sort of way. I knew that there was some stuff that they didn't do that I had done before, um, specifically from the hardware design side and the custom software development side, um, which really doesn't fit this model, I guess. But as far as from an automation or control systems and SCADA standpoint, I felt like it was a good opportunity to get involved in that, for the most part. And so far, it's been a really good experience. And so just I did 2 engineering studies for a underwear system platform project, to migrate it, or I guess to re-architect that system, to be more efficient. So
Awesome. Yeah, that would have been awkward if you're like, well, now that you mention it, I'm actually hating it and it's thinking about quitting.
oh yeah, I assumed that question would probably come up, so I was somewhat prepared, to a certain degree, I guess.
Hey man, transparency is what it's all about. So I mean, just being on here, a lot of people, they're kind of people that work at big Fortune, 500, like conglomerates, like they probably have a lot of things that they can and can't say legally. They still take the time to be on the podcast
Right.
and subject themselves to my crazy questions. I mean,
yeah. I mean, through this process, I've been, through this, I guess, process, I guess the exposure that you guys just sort of have created for guys like myself or whatever, I do get contacted for folks who are like, okay, well, come work for me. How much is it going to take or whatever, situation is. And from my standpoint, it's about, so what I've committed to and so on. And so anyway, yeah, I mean, I know it's been good,
That's good.
so far.
So yeah, I've
Okay.
always seen the line between employer or the relationship between employer and employee, especially in the system integration field, changing a lot over the past few years and continuing to change. So it's good to see you have something different that seems to be working out for both you and CSE Icon. So that's really cool that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, before I went to CSE, how my business I own got sort of started was sort of like, it was really, I was working for a company, and my customer said, you either need to come work for me or you need to go start your own business. And so then I was like, well, I'm in the middle of this project, so I didn't worry about it. But I'd been told that for probably 10 years prior to that, probably as well. And so anyway, so I finally decided to go follow year. And so then it grew probably too fast to where, at some point I had like probably 10, 15 employees. And so, but I spent a lot of time training them to the way I wanted things done, because I felt like whenever I bring someone in, if they decide to leave, well, for any reasons or things don't work out, hopefully they don't, but if they don't, is that I put them in a better situation at that point, and so I spent a lot of time, because I have the mindset like I would rather find out your deficiencies myself instead of the customer, finding out, those issues, in the field or on a project or whatever, so.
Yeah. We're starting to see, average tenures at companies like shorten, from decades to like maybe a few years. And, it's really, I advocate for like employer relationships that are more flexible. And, if it doesn't work out, it's no hard feelings. Like, it's not like you're expected to, kind of sign over your life to a company if you want to go work there. I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, you haven't hit your payoff date, so you still have to work for us for another 3 years. Like, I don't really believe in that because, sometimes things just don't work out. Family, changes happen. You need to move. Maybe there's not a right chemistry.
Yeah.
I think everyone deserves to be in an environment that they are most productive. And feel like they have a purpose for their life, and they're not just just a number, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think that because like when I came out, so I worked for extremely large companies, and it was like that where you were basically a number, and where it may have 100,000 employees, so you're ultimately like a number at the end of the day, for the most part. So, but yeah, I mean, I've had the fortunate of just working. Was most of my time has been in oil and gas, but I had small stints in like the space side, and then I had another stuff. So, so I've learned sort of where I feel the most comfortable at, and so for the most part, I prefer to being able, to be in a comfortable environment to be able to do your best, that you possibly can in in the situation, So
Yeah. Um, and maybe for some people that's working out of a ski lodge like you're at right now.
yeah. Well, I'm at home. I mean, yeah, it's yeah. So
It looks like for those of you guys just listening, Justin's like got these wood high ceilings with like beams, and it looks like a ski lodge. And so I was like, oh, Justin's just working from the ski lodge today. Oh, sorry, I
yeah. So
lost you there
this
for
is
a
kind
second.
of I said this is like upstairs. This is kind of like an entertainment space, I guess, so to speak, or whatever. So
And it's beautiful, man. Looks like there's a lot of sunlight, a lot of windows. Looks like a cool place to get some work done.
well, I live on like 15 acres now. I mean, so it's kind of like you're out in the middle of nowhere. So
Wow.
it's not bad. It's easy. I like to get work. I mean,
So do you do
so,
any like work at do you go out to client sites often, or are you finding a lot of your stuff is remote?
yeah, I mean, well, this past couple of weeks, I've had some on site where I did some engineering studies for the same client, two different locations. For like I said, one where data system they have here in Oklahoma. And so, but yeah, I mean, historically, I've traveled a lot. Like I've been to pretty much everywhere, but I would say Antarctica. I would say for the most part. But I mean, but like in recent years, I haven't had to travel a whole lot. But I mean, I've done projects almost anywhere you can think of. I mean, for the most part, literally.
So you've
So,
been to all six of the seven continents except for Antarctica?
yeah, yeah, I've done work all through Africa, Asia, a whole lot of work in Siberia. I mean,
South
like I've
America?
pretty, yeah, South America. I've been primarily on like the artificial lift side of oil and gas, is where I've done a lot. And I guess also right midstream. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I would say the garden spots, but I mean, it is what it is.
Awesome. So of all of the videos that Walker and I have been creating, which one is the one that stands out to the most to you in memory, and why?
I think probably the IoT stuff, as far as like educating the system integrator on how to leverage it and sell it. I think because I think a lot of people, they operate historically at the PLC and HMI, and that's kind of where they live, as he alludes to. I think a lot of his stuff, I think that's very good. So people can sort of open their mind to like things that are, that here's how the industry is shifting. So it's a matter of getting on this ship or not, is sort of the way I look at it.
Yeah, it's getting ready to sail too. So if you're not on it soon, I think this is the
I think
year.
I done, some before he even had started these videos or whatever. And well, over 2 years ago or 3 years ago almost, for a RTU manufacturer where their goal was to take MQTT data to Windows Azure. Um, and so, to bypass the SCADA system for the most part, you know. But I see a lot of, I guess, leverages there.
Awesome. So where do you see the future of the industry?
Um, I see the future. I see the future from the standpoint of it's really the evolution of sort of the open source to the, you know, how it traditionally is done now. I guess from how code is shared to how even applications are distributed. I think in a more of an open source environment. I think, you know, for the most part. I mean, that's one area you know, I'm starting to see it more, I guess, now. But I think as time goes on, I think it'll be more of just a, I guess, a way of life at some point.
Yeah, we're starting to see that. You know, Dustin and I were talking about how ideal it would be if there was a library of standards for, you know, how to develop your objects, how to do your alarming. I mean, there are kind of bits and pieces like ISA 101 and, you know, the high performance guideline, but there's not really, doesn't go into specific detail about like naming and certain best practices and, you know, a library of add-on instructions. Like, you know, Alan Bradley has the plant packs objects, but there's no, I guess, open standard library of process objects that the entire community at large can contribute to and make changes to. So that's something that I want to see, you know, if not like, you know, it's not like you have to use this, but it gives you a good starting point and gives you something to work with that in theory, the industry can kind of get better at and kind of more standardize for the industry.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, it moves away from your customer owning as much of the project as they do now. Now, not for me, I've always been a proponent of like, I don't want to own anything. It's all my customers because I'm just a service to execute their projects for the most part. But if you're ultimately trying to develop a product or you know, things of that nature, then going down in the open source environment, it actually helps you, I would say, leverage other technology as well as being able to, you know, um, so reuse some of your stuff from project to projects without any sort of legal issues and stuff like that with your clients, you know.
Yeah. What's one thing you want to accomplish in 2019?
The things I want to accomplish in 2019 is well specifically the company I work for now, or that us working with now, is is bringing the IoT with the automation and the SCADA all basically to one place to where they're seamless from each other, or to each other, I guess you could say. Is sort of my goals for, I would say, the year. Also, to sort of educate my customers I come in contact with to you know, seriously looking at IoT for the most part, because I think that it would impact their efficiency a great deal, you know, because I also know there's a lot of skeptics of the IoT, you know. I would say right now because the word is sort of a new slang word and things like that, you know. So
Yeah, buzzword. You know, Walker speaks very highly of you. He always mentions and, you know, drops your name as one of the people that's really, you know, the way he says it is like you came to the same conclusion that he did, but just independently. And now putting out those videos, it's connecting those like-minded thinkers and helping us achieve those goals of, like you said, to get IIoT more mainstream, to educate our customers, and to give them the value of these and the benefits of these technologies, which are freely available to us. We just got to go out there, learn how to use them, and sell them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing. Everybody is collaborating. Everybody learns about the other person and so forth. And for me, like automation is really goes across a whole lot of different areas. So for example, I did a pool project for a client for to know who won or lost a pool game. And so we use a lot of open source technologies to accomplish the project. But we ended at the end of the day, we also use IoT to sort of distribute the information within those pool tournaments and so on. And so I think, it's not only like a industrial thing as far as automation goes. I think it crosses into a lot of different sectors, for the most part.
So, wow, you're a nerd, man. Building a SCADA application for a pool game. That's totally something that I would do myself, but I've done similar things. That's really cool. What are some of your other hobbies?
My hobbies, I would say my hobbies are, like I said, if I'm not working, I'm spending time with my family. But I collect different things and stuff like that. But for the most part, I pretty much just I hang with my family, and I used to golf like some or whatever, but I haven't done much of that. But for the most part, it's pretty much spending time with my family and their friends and stuff like that for the most part. So I pretty much lay low, I would say, for the most part, and I travel as my time admits. So
Pretty much lay low. So what you said you collect a few things. What are your collections?
I like watches. I mean, for the most part, is my is my sort of thing. So I like so that's something I got into probably like 6, 7 years ago or something like that. Um, but yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Like I'm doing something, you know, technical wise, a good majority of the time. So I'm always trying to. I mean, for the most part, a lot of stuff it either revolves around my my children or my grandchild or my work. For the most part. So that's sort of how I operate.
Have you been posting any? I know you're really active on, like I said, on LinkedIn engagement and comments. Are you doing any videos?
I haven't ever done any video. This is like the first thing that I've even remotely done. I guess. Actually, I talked to one of my prior customers that I usually I'll tag him in some stuff. But he does kind of he one thing his company has done is something that's similar to what you and Walker are doing. So we're discussing sort of doing something like that, I guess here.
Here at
So
CSC Icon, or
well, no, just individually. I mean, it's just, as far as like he's in the technology, I'm into technology. Now I've been educating him on sort of my world, I guess you could say, from an automation and SCADA perspective. But his thing has been on the digital marketing side and stuff like that. So I mean, he's done what we're talking about and doing and so on. So I thought about it, yeah. So we'll probably do something probably in the near future, uh, doing some sort of some videos discussing things or whatever is on like our minds or whatever. So that is something like I'm interested now in looking at doing, for the most part. Just a matter of finding, the right time and all that sort of stuff to do it all.
so time's holding you back. What are the major things holding you back, would you say?
I won't say time's holding back. It's just a matter of our schedules been in alignment, with each other, for the most part, but
Why do you want to wait on him? He's going to help you?
well, yeah, for the most part, I've never been one to sort of, take my phone and do like a Facebook Live or whatever, or whatever. But I think, ultimately, I will do that. I just haven't. I mean, for the most part, I haven't really thought about it all that much as far as seriousness. Now, the more and more engagement I get with you guys and stuff like that, it has been something I've thought about more seriously, I would say.
Awesome. Well, I think that you should do it. I'm going to encourage you. It'd be cool is you should, it doesn't necessarily need to be about automation. I think you can be really cool is if you shared some of your passions, like your watch collection on a video, give you something to talk about. And I think a lot of people might find it interesting. That's kind of like the theme of the LinkedIn local events and like kind of the non-pitchy type of networking events where you just learn about people's passions beyond what their job title is.
Yeah.
So I'm going to keep rooting for you. I think, like you said, video is pretty big. And I'm just curious and asking because I'm trying to develop a video training course that helps people, engineers specifically, get started with video on LinkedIn and how they can use it to level up their career. So to, help people like get started. And because there's a certain number of people out there that just aren't even aware of that. That's something that they should be doing. Then there's a certain people, like once you've educated to them the value of doing video, now it's just a matter of, okay, now what do I do? Like you got to get the camera out, you got to hit record.
It doesn't even matter.
What do I talk about?
It's content. What do you talk about? Yeah, right.
Yeah, what do I talk about? Sure. Yeah. And people think that they don't have anything valuable to talk about, which is kind of nonsense because everyone has a unique perspective on the world and we're going to get smarter by sharing that. That's all information really is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. For me, it's about, so what do I talk about? So where do I start? That sort of stuff. But I think once I put, enough effort into it, then that'll come naturally, for the most part, I think, so.
What would be cool is if you did how to conduct you said you did an audit, you conducted a review on a SCADA system.
Yeah.
What would be cool is if you did a white paper or a video on how to conduct one of those type of performance audits to evaluate a system, right? Because then you can teach someone to do it themselves, or more than likely not, they might call you to do that for them, right? That would be a good idea for a video topic.
Right, yeah.
I'm sure we could brainstorm some. What are some other video topics that you would want to do?
For me, I would say from an automation standpoint is getting into the details for like MQTT as far as for folks that want to actually implement it or have it implemented at the hardware level to where you're not having to use specific brokers and if you have the need for that. So I see that is something that's not, I'd say, widely talked about, I guess, so to speak. So I think, because I've gone through this effort quite a bit, I think it would be something valuable for the most part for some of the, the guys that are interested in that sort of, content, for the most part,
Yeah. Another one that I've seen starting to become more popular is like video training on how to use a particular system. There's going to be probably scenarios where you're not able to share those specific informations or screens. I think we're kind of moving away from that, but imagine if you did a video training on how to use a particular SCADA app, like let's say for water wastewater system. You built it in an Ignition or Wonderware, and you're just doing a video on how to use it. That could also be, not only useful for the company you sold it to, but as marketing showing the world what a water system is, how to develop one in Ignition or whatever platform that you used,
Yeah.
and how to
Yeah.
operate it, right?
I have a yeah. I mean, I have a customer that they had us build a cryo plant simulator because they do a lot of training. And it was basically a pure software simulation, no hardware. You just run it on. It's more like a client server architecture, I guess. But yeah, I can see stuff like that in a more generic sense. Saying, like if either training people how to operate these things, or even from a standpoint of how to go through that process, I guess, so to speak. So
So if you
this would
could
be pretty cool.
if you could develop your dream system right now, what would it consist of?
You mean from from an automation standpoint,
Yeah,
or,
like
or
PLC,
just anything?
SCADA, networking. What would you spec out?
Um, I would say I guess like nowadays I'm a big fan of Ignition, where I look at it as the modern day iconics, I guess, of how open it is. So I would probably go with Ignition from a SCADA or HMI perspective. And from a communication standpoint, I would say probably everything being on an IoT um, communication protocol, like MQTT. Um, and then from a hardware standpoint, now there's a lot of PLCs or automation platforms that don't necessarily support MQTT right now. But I would probably say, because of at least where I'm at, I would say probably you know an Allen Bradley control system. If I'm in like a more of a process facility or something like that with MQTT, and probably the same thing on the well side, just because um, for the most part, is you can make it dynamic to where you reduce a lot of the efforts that go into having to either bring a facility online that's new or a well online that's new, and things just magically happen in the system. For the most part, um, it was sort of how I try to stay independent of hardware platforms and even software platforms. But the idea is, my dream system is where, so regardless of platform, is that everything is somewhat dynamic, so that it speeds up the process of getting things online faster,
Right.
instead of the more traditional way of thinking, which is time consuming and it's resource consuming, from that standpoint. And so,
Awesome.
like I said, I think IoT is really the way that's ultimately going to happen in the long run. Um, it started sort of with everything being database driven, as a few years ago or so, and so now it's taken steps further than that, toward now that same concept is being applied on your IoT side.
Yeah, I love it. That's the way things are headed. So
Yeah.
what conferences and events are you planning on going to this year, if any? What do you have on your
My
timeline?
schedule permit, I would like to go to the Ignition conference. Um, I like to go to Automation Fair. It's pretty good when I go to those, or I mean to that one, at least in the past. I don't go to a lot of conferences, so that's why my exposure is probably, I would say, limited there, because I say usually I would stay pretty busy or whatever. But there is some that there some conferences that are tailored around like machine learning, um, and more. I think I would like to go to something like that, like something that involves, well, whether it's OpenCV or TensorFlow or something like that. I mean, because I think those platforms, I see a way to get those platforms into our sort of world, you know. Um, but obviously, that might take time, as well,
Awesome. So do you have any questions for me?
No, I mean, so you say that, I guess, from what I've heard before is you are you are you 100% at doing content, or do you do other things as well? I mean, outside of that space.
Yeah, that one's really tough, man. So for a while, I was doing 100%. Uh, I was doing so before I quit my job in May of last year, I was working full time and doing videos on the side. Then once I quit, I went to doing only videos, and traveling and LinkedIn videos and YouTube videos and podcasts, going to events. I did that pretty much full time, and no really automation. Like I went to events, like I went to a Viva World, I went to ICC, I went to the American Waterworks Association conference in Vegas. I went to Rockwell's Automation Fair. I went to I went to Dallas a lot and created content with Walker. But I didn't necessarily do any of the work myself, like as far as in the automation industry. So that's since changed. Like in December or January, I started doing Upwork. So now I'm doing
Oh yeah.
freelancing. I'm working with one client, and it's keeping me busy around 20 to 40 hours per week, which is really nice. It's flexible. And I'm also probably going to be doing some marketing and video production work for that client too. So now it's nice that I'm doing both, but it is definitely hard because it's kind of like switching gears. But it's good that I'm actually doing it again now, because now I'm more connected to the industry now that I'm working in it. I'm talking about IIoT. I'm talking about all these things while I'm actually working on an Ignition Edge IIoT application. So it's cool to be able to do that, because now I can actually talk about these subjects with a little bit of authority still, right? Whereas before I had a lot of experience and I was doing it, but then I kind of stopped. So I kind of felt like I needed to get back involved so I can continue to be, connected to the industry and viewed as a source of information for the industry, in addition to the video advocation that I do. So yeah, it's
Okay.
but yeah, it's definitely tough. I wish I could do both full time. Full time.
No, no
Who
doubt.
would I talk to? Who are some other people at CSE that you would recommend me talking to?
I would say I would, I would say Rich Wagner. He's really sharp. Guy that he's one of the guys. My first project that I was doing the work for him. I guess I took over Ignition project that he works on. He's since been promoted to, I think, over all of their SCADA. So he's really big into Ignition, and so he's got this push right now is to get everyone that deals with Ignition, I guess, in the company gold certified. So we're going through that process right now. Getting probably, like, I don't know, somewhere around 20 engineers or something like that. Gold certified. So he'd be a good, I think, individual to talk to. Uh, but from a sales perspective, probably Paul Thurman. He seems to be an interesting guy. I mean, he basically is trying to sell these solutions or whatever. So I deal with him quite
Right.
a bit.
Okay. Yeah, Paul's
You know,
pretty amazing. He's always on LinkedIn, and huge supporter of what we're doing. And
yeah,
I
I guess he
ran
thought
into him
this
at
was
conferences.
being, yeah, he thought this was being, well, I assume, I don't know if he did or not, but he was like, well, I need the link because I want to see what you have to say or whatever. I said, well, I'm sure it'll be up at some point or whatever. So,
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I mean, he's really was point of on LinkedIn
Yeah,
for sure.
I'll post some teasers and some short clips before then, but everything that I'm filming for Automation Month is going to be released in May. So we've actually
Okay.
still got quite a bit of time, another couple months here before everything's launched. But I wanted to give enough time to make scheduling work, and I'm trying to have everything recorded by April 14th, and then that gives me like 2 weeks to produce all the finished products, all the finished episodes to release in May. But I might do like a 1 minute talking point short video between now and then. I might or might not. I don't know. It just depends. But really, one of my goals is to. What's that?
Can you just make everybody wait? I said you can make everyone just wait.
There is something to be said about that. It does building a little bit of hype does help out get a momentum going. Really, the reason why I did it that way is because I wanted to pack in so much content into May, Automation Month, that I had to film it in advance. So I'm just recording in advance and then releasing everything in May, and then that way.
So this is really all for May. I got you.
Yeah. I mean, I've recorded like 5 or 6 in the last week. I would just be editing podcasts all day. Like I've been filming them a lot. So I typically put out like 1 per week, and it varies from like marketing experts to LinkedIn influencers to automation engineers. So it's kind of varied, but yeah, May is just going to be automation engineers, and it'll be kicked off while I'll be at the CSIA conference. So I'll be talking to more system integrators at the CSIA conference. But yeah, Paul Thurman, he's been a good guy.
Yeah. I think he said he met you one time or something like that.
Yeah, I ran into him at Aviva World in Dallas, so that was cool.
So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think all this is being good. I mean, I think I was kind of surprised, like it, because my network has grown like a lot. Because every time I'm tagged in something, I'll get like a whole bunch of requests for some reason. And so at first it was like I was skeptical or whatever, but then it's like, okay, well, it has to be because of this, because I don't know what other reason it would be, whatever. So it's kind of been interesting. And so I would assume everyone's network has kind of grown, who's been tagged in all these different things or whatever,
right,
over the last probably year or something,
Yeah. Well, I mean, we tag you because you add value. You have really good comments, you put your 2 cents in, and LinkedIn, you can build your personal brand on LinkedIn just by commenting, which is
right. Yeah, it seems that way. Yeah.
Like Dustin, he's never done a video, but he's that's why we call him an automation influencer, because he's top of mind when we think of these platforms. We think of this industry. We have these certain names that come up because they are engaged constantly. Doing video will make that take that to a next level. Like Sean, he's doing the videos. I think Brandon Ray, he's done a couple videos, so that would be cool. I'm talking to him next week, and I'm talking to, in a few minutes here, Eric Compton. So that'll be cool as well too.
Yeah.
You have anything you want to ask Eric?
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be a pretty good guy too. I mean, like I guess Walker, so like I could see where, like you could have like the dream project. You have all these great guys or whatever, involved or something. Well, it would be interesting to see how that would, transpire.
It'd be either really amazing or it'd be chaos. Make for a good reality show.
Yeah.
Like we just get everyone in one room, and then all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, maybe our egos come out and we just start clashing. You're like, no, this is the way you should do it. Oh man, no, I think it'd work out well though. That'd be something cool to do.
Yeah, it would be probably all right.
Well, Justin, how can people reach you? And do you have any closing statements for the audience?
I think, as far as closing statements, I think people should, when people see all these different videos, or whether it's questions that individuals might have all around the world or wherever, I think is to sort of engage into like being the mindset like to help each other out, regardless whether there's something actually in it for you monetarily or not. Because I get contacted a lot from different people about questions. I've actually done team viewer sessions with her, like to help them out, whatever situation is. Now, at the end of the day, yeah, it's not affecting my pocketbook or whatever, but it doesn't matter because from my standpoint, I want to add value to whatever I can. And so I really think everyone should be under the same mindset of that. And I think, good things will happen and so on. It's my mindset as far as how I see how I can see how all this stuff would grow. And I mean, everyone who's watching these, I would think that they would want to do that same thing. So,
amen, brother. Well, Justin, thank you so much. This episode of the Zack Scriven podcast is in the books. Thank you for taking part in Automation Month, and we'll talk soon, man.
All right, sounds good. See you.
Peace.